All right, we're ready to go. Um, this week's Parsha, of course, is the Parsha of Vayishlach. I want to actually deal with a little bit of unfinished business from last week. Take a moment or two to do it. Last week, I spoke about Yaakov Avinu, whose whole life was to navigate between angels and stones. We saw last week he had the dream of the angels. We know that this week, at least according to Rashi and others, he actually sends angels, malachim, to Esav, and we will see that in other places too. He's attached to malachim, but he's also, of course, living in a world of stones. And I just want to actually take us back just a little bit to last week's Parsha, Perek Lamed Aleph, Pasuk Mem Hey. I alluded to it last week, but I think we ran out of time and I didn't give it what I consider to be the justice that it needs. Yaakov Avinu spends 20 years in Lavan's home, does not allow Lavan's ignoble side to penetrate him, and he leaves. He leaves with Rachel and Leah, with the children, Bilhah, Zilpah, and with a part of the wealth that he earned over the course of 20 years. And in Perek Lamed Aleph Pasuk Mem Hey, we see that Lavan caught up with him in last week's Parsha. He caught up with him. Obviously, they're going to go much slower. And Hashem appears to Lavan and he tells him that he should not harm Yaakov at all. And they make a pact. And the pasuk that we talked about last week was, Vayikach Yaakov Aven, Yaakov took a stone, Vayirimeha Matzeva. Once again, he makes a matzeva, a monument. Yaakov introduces to Jewish nationhood the concept of memory. That's what a monument does. It reminds us of events, both that are positive and some which are tragic. And he does this not just here. He sets up a monument in this week's parsha in memory of Rachel, right at the place that she's buried. There is, by the way, parenthetically, I've never been one to dash people's beliefs, and I don't really want to do it here. I just want to mention that there is a machloket. There is a clear disagreement as to where Kever Rachel actually is. The one that most of us go to is the one which is just south of Yerushalayim. It used to be the most beautiful, serene little structure. Now it's a fortress because it has to be a fortress to protect people who are going to visit Kever Rachel, there to daven and to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu for their most profound needs. But there is a machloket as to where actually she's buried. Perhaps at another shir we might talk about this. We're not talking about just people saying, an archaeologist saying no, that's not it. But we do have Gedolei Yisrael, the Ramban, and the Ketav Kabbalah differ as to exactly where it is. But in either case, everybody agrees wherever she's buried, Yaakov set up a matzeva. And another thing too, it doesn't matter whether you're standing within 3 amot or 2 amot or 4 amot of the kever. The whole power of Kever Rachel is the power of the Jewish people to recall, precisely because of matzeva, that collective memory which we have. Rachel Imenu's her inner beauty and her outer beauty, all of that is summed up, and it doesn't matter whether you're standing within 10 feet or you're not standing within 10 feet. But I just want to say, Yaakov took a stone, Vayirimeha matzeva. I use an unusual term. It doesn't say Vayatsev matzeva. That's what we say when we talk about building a matzeva. But Vayirimeha, he elevated. Yaakov's whole life, and with this we'll introduce it into this week's parsha, but Yaakov's entire life was elevating the mundane. That's what his life was. That to other people, they're stones. To secularists, stones are stones. But to people who truly are imbued with spirit, stones are not just stones. They are, in fact, yet another opportunity for Jews to become closer to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And so, therefore, this use of that verb, I think, is very powerful. And it's a lesson for us in life as well, right? We have the possibility. We also, of course, must straddle the existence between the mundane world and the spiritual world. That's what we do. And our job is not to live solely in the spirit, and certainly not to live solely in the mundane, but rather to elevate the mundane so that it becomes yet another instrument by which we can serve HaKadosh Baruch. That is that pasuk, Vayikach Yaakov Avin. One other thing, I can't pass it up. I noticed for many people, young people, they don't know the difference between Evan and Oven. See, here it says, Vayikach Yaakov Oven. And I ask, very often I'll ask, what's the difference? And thankfully, they don't know, because there is no difference, okay? There's no difference between Evan and Oven. The only reason sometimes that word Evan is pronounced Oven is purely because of its placement, its syntax placement within the pasuk. Usually there's an etnacht under it, although not always. Evan, and those words, that genre of words is called segoliot, where you have two segols, one after the other. So when they come at a pause or a place where the pasuk should be segmented, so then Evan becomes Aven, Yeled becomes Yaled, Gever becomes Gaver. So it is, and so it is. So we're going to move on with that. And there I've satisfied my taiva. See, I can't pass that up. But now what we're going to do is we're going to talk about one of the most mysterious elements in all of the Torah Kedosha, and that is Yaakov's encounter with the Ish, with the man. He returns, following what we said today, he's escorted, according to Chazal, once again, Malachim, the Malachei Eretz Yisrael, the Malachei Chutz La'aretz leave his protection. Malachei Eretz Yisrael now join him. According to Rashi, he sends a selection or a delegation of Malachim, actual Malachim, meaning, say, angels, to Esav. Not everybody agrees. Uncle says no, they were people, and that's again another fascinating topic as to when is a malach not a malach, and when is an ish not an ish. All right, when is an angel not an angel, and when is a man not a man. So we'll talk a little bit about that now. But the Torah tells us he finds out that Esav is coming now, and Yaakov's worst fears appear to materialize because he sees that his brother is coming with 400 men. He's not coming to wish him a happy birthday. That's his assumption, right? And so he takes action because that's what a Jew has to do. Davening is one, Rashi says. Two, you have to set up a camp for self-protection as much as possible. And three, he sent actually presents to Esav in the hopes that he could waylay any evil intentions that Esav had. So the Torah tells us, really sets a scene for us. Perek Lamed Bet, Pasuk Kaf Hey. He separates the camp. He does everything he can to prepare for what could be the impending battle and the loss of life on both sides, because actually the pasuk says, "Vayira Yaakov ma'od vayetzer lo." Yaakov was very much afraid of Esav, and Rashi says, "Why do you need two expressions? Vayira, he was afraid. Vayetzer, he was distressed." Rashi, there's other interpretations too. Again, I hate to introduce it, hate to introduce and run, but Rashi says, "Vayira Yaakov ma'od." Yaakov was very much afraid. Shema yehareg, maybe he'll be killed. and Vayetzer, which is a deeper form of fear. He was distressed. Shema Yaharog Acherim. Maybe he will be responsible for the death of others. Very, very beautiful statement. But in either case, he's afraid. And he's afraid for himself and for his beloved family. Now he does all the preparations and he's all alone. People, they say oftentimes, the president at a time of war, at a time when let's say the president has to take action that could cost people's lives, they talk about the loneliness of that office, the loneliness of the decision making. And lahavdil, we get a taste of that here in Perek Lamed Bet Pasuk Hey. Vayivater Yaakov levado. Yaakov was left by himself, alone. So here he is now, only to commune with his thoughts, and of course, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And then within that same pasuk, it says, Vayeavek ish imo, and a man wrestled with him ad alot hashachar, until the rising of the morning star, which Chazal, Rav Hirsch is, of course, very, very careful with words. He says it doesn't mean the dawn came, although you could say that, because shacharit comes with after alot hashachar, but it's probably alot hashachar, a period before, as the dawn is about to come. And they wrestled all night, but he's called an ish. Interestingly, this ish, Rashi says, who was this ish, this man? Saro shel Esav. Because Rashi subscribed to the view that Chazal say, the Gemara, that every nation has its celestial guardian. All the other nations of the world, they have it. And they're Saro shel Esav, Saro shel Romi. Each of them has a protector in Shemayim. The Jews do too, but the difference is we don't have a Sar. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself protects the Jewish people. That's probably the only way that we can adequately explain our existence still, okay? And Chazal said, Saro shel Esav. And so therefore, he may have looked like a man, Rashi seems to say, but he was really the defender of Esav and Shemayim. Every nation has it. Esav was part of that, okay? It is interesting, though, that Rav Hirsch, when he translates this into the German, which I do not, unfortunately, I do not know enough German to confirm it, but we do have a translation here by, I believe, it's his niece or probably his grandniece, Rav Hirsch had it, and it says, then someone wrestled with him. That's how he interprets ish, someone. He very cleverly avoids getting pinned down. Maybe it was a malach, that could be some personality. Maybe it was a person. All right, another possible personality, but that's how Rav Hirsch describes it. And then the Torah tells us, Vayar ki lo yacholo, and this ish, this entity that appears to be hostile. We're going to see that not everybody agrees that he's hostile. He comes and he sees that he cannot defeat Yaakov. Vayiga b'chaf yirecho. So this ish, this man, this ish, actually touched it appears it's like the sciatic nerve, or it's around the hip, forcing Yaakov Avinu to limp. And it was dislodged. The hip bone was dislodged. I don't know enough Torah, and I also don't know enough biology, but it appears at some point this hip bone was dislodged, and Yaakov then limped. But despite the adversary's best intentions to defeat Yaakov, he couldn't. And they continued apparently for a while. And Pasuk Kav Zayin says, Vayomer shalacheni. Now the adversary says, Shalacheni, send me. Why? Ki Allah hashachar. Again, we have a halachic concept of alot hashachar, which precedes the actual Netzach Hama. Netzach Hama it's still dark, but there's a clear change in the night light or darkness. Vayomer, and Yaakov said, Lo ashalechacha, I'm not going to let you go. I'm not going to liberate you. Ki im beirachtani. Give me a blessing. And then, of course, he changes Yaakov's name. Rav Hirsch mentions, and I think he doesn't need my approval, but Rav Hirsch actually deals with the question that why, if he changed his name here, why does he have to come? Why does Hashem come again and change his name? So Rav Hirsch very, very cleverly says that you're still going to be called Yaakov, but Yaakov now means, usually when people use the name Yaakov, it could be interpreted as a derisive name. Okay, so he says, but now when people say Yaakov, they will see you as a prince of God. Later, your name will be officially changed, and primarily people will call you Yisrael, and so we are called Yisrael too, even though, of course, in almost every family we know there is a beloved Yaakov in our families. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the Radak. The Radak lived in the 1200s, 13th century. He was, as many people, he lived in Provence, and in Provence, they were wonderful Balei Diktuk. They understood language very, very well, and it's due to them and their understanding of Hebrew and what they knew of other Semitic languages that we can understand the Torah better. So here it says, the Radak says the following: Vayomer Shalacheni. At the end of this great trouble, the adversary says to Yaakov, Klomar, means to say, Ani shulachti elecha me'et ha'el. You should know. According to the Radak, he's saying to him, you need to know, I'm God's messenger. I'm God's agent, not Esav. He doesn't say not Esav's agent, but he says, I'm God's agent. And therefore, lahavtichacha, this is to assure you, laharot elecha b'maaseh, to show you in actuality through deeds, she'asiti imcha, that I have done with you, shelo yuchal adam laharei alecha. No one will be able lahara lecha. No one will be able to, in the end, to defeat you. Just as I could not, therefore, this is to show you no one will ultimately destroy you. And of course, as the Ramban says very often, the phrase, he says that the Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, that which occurred, those events that our ancestors experienced, they are a harbinger of what will come in the future to us. That's one way to interpret the phrase, and that is that what happened to Yaakov, he had a battle. Indeed, he certainly was injured. He limped, but ultimately he was not destroyed. And so therefore that is the message, according to the Radak, of this. That's the whole message of this adversary. The adversary was not really an adversary, but rather an agent of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to tell us Maaseh Avot Siman Labanim, a foreshadow of the future. And of course, there are Meforshim who say, that's exactly right. We're not defeated, but we limp. We lost so many beautiful children. We lost so many beautiful young people in the prime of their lives throughout Jewish history, whether it was in Europe, whether it was in Arab lands. Jews limp. We limp. There's only, I've said in the past that if most people double their populations in 1,000 years. Well, it was estimated that to the Romans, in the time of the Romans, that there were as many as 8 million Jews. Some say even more, but let's say 8 million Jews. So by the year 1000, we should have had 16. By the year 2000, we should have had 32 million Jews, right? And plus. And what do we have? Far, far less than that. Far, far. And that's even at a very slow pace to double the population. So we limp, but we're alive. And we, of course, we make extraordinary gifts to all of humanity. Baruch Hashem. Now, so therefore, either the malach was, either the person could have been a man, he could have been Saro Shel Esav, could have been Esav's advocate. He couldn't, and he certainly could have been, as the Radak says, he could have been an agent of a Kodesh Baruch. Now let's turn to the Gemara. Let's see if we turn to the Gemara in Chulin. The Gemara in Chulin on Daf Tzadi Aleph Amud Bet gives its account, which is, by the way, found in other Meforshim as well. But in other words, the other Meforshim use this Gemara. And here's the account. And the Gemara, as it often does, this is what we call Agadah. It means to say that it fills in the blanks. Sometimes it fills in the blanks. The whole fight took one pasuk in the Torah too, maybe. Okay. And here, the Gemara on Sari Aleph Amud Bet toward the bottom says as follows: Vayomer shalacheni ki Allah hashach. So the Malach said, "Send me, release me, because the dawn has come." It's called a dawn. Amar lo ganavata. What are you? Yaakov said to him, "Are you some sort of a ganav, or are you a kidnapper?" Okay, that she'ata mityarei min hashachar, that you don't want to be seen in the light of day. Is that who you are? Why should I let you go? Amar lo. So he said to him, as the Gemara says, Malach ani. I'm a malach. Now, by the way, again, the malach, usually the assumption is that the malach is sent for a mission here on earth by none other than HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or HaKadosh Baruch Hu's designate. Omar lo malach ani. I am a malach. Okay? Umiyom shenivreti. Please listen carefully to this, because the Gemara is such a beautifully structured Gemara. Umiyom shenivreti, from the day that I was created. We don't know what day he was created. Maybe it's Masa Bereshit, or some people say they become created daily. Lo higia zmani lomar shira ad achshav. Today's my day. The equivalent, it could be not just the 5,000 years, but 5 billion years. In other words, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu obviously could have kept all of everything in its creation, whatever that means. We're not going to get into the age of the earth, but certainly from HaKadosh Baruch Hu governed eons and eons before there was time. And he said, this is my time to say Shira. You got to let me go. Okay? Hey, I hate to wrestle and run, but I got to go say Shira. It's my only chance. So Yaakov Avinu says, I'm not going to let you go until you give me a bracha. Okay? Now I can see the sense of urgency, right? Now usually that's leverage, right? Whenever somebody needs to do something, so leverage is good. So now the Gemara says, Chaviven Yisrael Lifnei HaKadosh Baruch. The Jewish people is beloved to Hashem. I'm sorry. More than the celestial angels. That we Jews can say Shira to HaKadosh Baruch Hu every morning, maybe more than that, not just once. Okay. They can only say it once a day. We can say it. Every time we make a bracha, we can say it. Right? Some people say Pam Achat b'Shabbat. Once they only say Shira, they only sing songs of praise to God on Shabbos. Some people say Pam Achat b'Chodesh. Some people say no, it's even more rare, once a month. Pam Achat b'Shana. Some say no. The Malach only says it once a year. Pam Achat b'Shavua. Some people say it's once every 7 years. Shemitah year, our year. This magnificent year that HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us. All right? Some people say, no, they only can say Shira once every 50 years. And some people say, Pam Achat Ba'olam. once in all of eternity. All right. So the Malach says, look, this is my moment. If you hold me here like this, so I will miss the opportunity, not of a daily one, perhaps, but even the reason I was created was to say Shira, and now I won't be able to do that ever, unless you release me now, because the Shachar has come, the morning has come. Now, the Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, Perak Gimel, Perak Dalet. Ben Azai says the following to him. Ben Azai said, Hu haya omer, al tibaz l'chol adam. Don't denigrate, treat lightly, demean any person, no one. Al tehi maflig l'chol davar. And don't distance yourself from anything. There's different interpretations of that. And then he says, she'ein l'cha adam, she'ein lo sha'a. Because there is no one who is ever created who does not have his hour, her hour to shine as a human being, to actually, shall we say, justify their very existence. So don't make fun of them, because every person has the potential. They don't always do it, but has the potential to make their entire life justified. You know, the famous Gemara in I believe it's in Avodah Zorah, where you have Elazar ben Durdia, who says, Bacha Rebbe cried that Yesh Kona Olamo b'sha'achat, a person in 1 hour, they might have wasted their whole life, but don't disparage that person, because in 1 hour, if it's true tshuva, that person can shine and can justify his existence. That's the Gemara there for another time, another place. So we have here this statement, and I just want to say that Rav Moshe Schick, we're almost done. Rav Moshe Schick actually said, if you note, he says, the talents of the world are spread out over all of humanity. I often point out that the Rambam and the Soloveitchik family, for example, they're proof that there's not an even distribution of intellect in the world. That's true, admittedly. So, okay. But they're not necessarily, unless they follow the Torah mitzvahs, they're not more beloved than anybody else. They just happen to get through life's difficulties in terms of intellect or intellectual difficulties very well, and they can be instructive to us. So Rav Moshe Schick, he was the chief rabbi of Germany in the 19th century, he says, Natana Kadosh Baruch Hu l'chol echad, and he's talking about this Mishnah, Ve'en lecha adam she'en lo sha'a. He says, Natana Hashem l'chol adam ma'aleh acheret. Everybody has a different virtue. Everybody has a different talent. This one is excellent in terms of putting cars together, and this one can understand electronics, and this one can understand business, and this one can understand medicine, right? L'man yitztarchu lo b'nei adam. Why? Why did God do that? So that every person will have someone who will come to them to be able to say, oh, you know mathematics, I'm having this problem, or you're such a good athlete. I wonder if you could help me. Okay, so people will come to them, so that people should be able, who don't have that wonderful talent. And again, arts, science, personality, humor, voice. We all have so many different ones. People can come to them and derive benefit from them. So I want to conclude now simply, if we accept this magnificent mission that we have, I'd like to just simply say that each of us travels a long road in search of meaning, self-liberation. That's what part of this story is about. It's a lonely road, fraught with uncertainty and with pain. Perhaps our own personal liberation is really tied in some measure with that of others. Perhaps the lesson of Yaakov's struggle is that we are most free when we've released another human being from the bonds that confine him. Now, the dawn, of course, comes for both Yaakov and the adversary. Same dawn. For Yaakov, it brings tidings of, according to the Radak, particularly for Yaakov, it brings tidings of his ability to withstand every earthly obstacle. For the angel it heralds that angel has told him so, according to the Radak. But for the angel, it heralds that moment in eternity when he can fill his raison d'etre. That that confined singing Shira once in eternity, he now can fulfill that mission. And Yaakov, by releasing him, is allowing him to do that. For both, this struggle is their defining moment, a moment of personal triumph that could only be achieved together. Okay, that's our lesson for this week. Mir Hashem, our family is celebrating a bar mitzvah in Baltimore, but next week we won't miss any Wednesdays. We won't miss any Zoom sessions. But in case you hear that we're out of town, we'll miss Shabbos. But Mir Hashem, we should go on uninterrupted pretty much through December. So kol tuv to everybody. Thank you for joining.
Always wonderful.
Thank you,
Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi. Enjoy.
Yeah.
Good
Thank
Shabbos,
you.
everybody.
Good Shabbos, Rabbi
Shabbos.
Myers.
Have a wonderful
Thank you.
Shabbos.
And by the way, I want to wish a mazel tov to Donnie Stulman, who will be Mir Hashem getting married within 2 or 3 weeks in Los Angeles to Carol Amsterdam. And so we wish you many years of happiness and joy together.
Mazel tov.
Mazel tov. Thank you, Mike.
Mazel tov.